Coming to you from Strings and Things Studio in Ventura, California, I'm Katie.
I'm Ann.
I'm Karin.
And this is the Strings Unraveled Book Club. Welcome to November. This month we read We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson, which was my pick for the month. I apologize if I have to clear my throat because I slept with the heater on, and you know how it makes you all like gunky.
Yep.
So that's how I feel today. So I have a plot summary I will read real quick here. It's not too long, but it gives you a good synopsis of the story. 18-year-old Mary Catherine, or Mary Cat Blackwood, lives with her older sister Constance, their ailing Uncle Julian, and their faithful cat Jonas in their family's large estate. She begins her narrative by describing her weekly trip to the village for supplies. As always, the townspeople bully and gawk at her. Some chant childish rhymes about her and her sister. As always, she wishes and imagines them dead. Constance never leaves the house. When Mrs. Clark and Mrs. Wright from town visit, Uncle Julian reveals details of the horrible murders that took place in the house 6 years earlier. Someone put arsenic in the sugar bowl. Julian's wife, as well as the girls, parents, and brother, died. Julian ate some of the poisoned sugar and has been an invalid ever since. Julian frequently mentions he's working on a book about the murders. He keeps track of every detail he can remember from that day, yet he often asks Constance if the whole thing even ever happened. Readers learn Constance was tried for the murders and acquitted. During the trial, Mary Cat lived at the local orphanage. Mrs. Clark and Mrs. Wright urge Constance to leave the house now and then. When the women leave, the Blackwoods laugh, as they often do, about the more morbidly curious townsfolk. Mary Cat begins to see a change in the air. She invents enchanted words, buries household items in the yard, and nails one of her father's books to a tree, all in an effort to magically prevent change. Readers gradually begin to sense her immaturity and question her grasp of reality. Constance assures Mary Cat the only change ahead is the start of spring. Then cousin Charles arrives. Charles' father, another brother of Julian's, refused to help the family during Constance's trial. Charles says as soon as his father died, he came to see how he could assist his cousins. Julian and Mary Cat detect Charles' ulterior motives, but Constance relishes his attention. Charles moves into Father's room and begins taking Father's items. He's irritable with Julian and Mary Cat and makes subtle threats, all the while convincing Constance she's done the family a disservice by allowing them to live this way. Mary Cat rearranges his room. She hopes to confuse him by making him think he's in the wrong house. When he threatens her with punishment for doing this, she returns to his room and pushes his lit pipe onto some of his papers. The house catches on fire. Townsfolk come to gawk, and many suggest the fire chief should let the house burn down. Charles repeatedly orders people to drag Father's safe full of money from the flames. Villagers begin stealing items and throwing rocks to break the windows. Mary Cat and Constance hide until the blaze is out and the townspeople have gone. They learn Julian didn't survive the ordeal. The girls barricade themselves in the house and sift through the rubble. Only a few rooms are livable, so they close all other doors permanently. Mary Cat notes how much she'd like to kill everybody. Constance's reply reveals that Mary Cat was the one who poisoned the Blackwood family 6 years earlier. Constance regrets mentioning it, and it's clear she will never reveal her sister's guilt or mention it again. In the days that follow, several townspeople and Charles come to check on the girls. Mary Cat and Constance won't open the door, nor do they indicate they're inside. Guilt and fear overtake many of the villagers. They begin bringing food and leaving it on the front porch every day. As the girls eat the neighbor's food locked in their burned-out house, Mary Cat notes how happy they now are. So that is the beginning-to-end basic plot summary of We Have Always Lived in the Castle, which was a relatively short read. It was like 5 and some change hours of an audiobook, so I guess we could just jump into how you guys felt about it.
I liked it.
I liked it. I went through all kinds of emotions through it. So,
Ooh, lots of emotions.
I hate those townspeople.
Yeah.
And wait a minute. Is there something wrong with Mary Cat? And wait a minute. Maybe whoa, I don't think she's all there.
Yeah,
There's something wrong with one of them, and you're not quite sure
I'm not
who
quite sure.
is
Right, yeah.
for
It's
the
like-
majority of it.
I mean,
There's-
you know, Uncle Julian's kind of off, but that explains because he's got brain damage from the poisoning. So
Yeah.
okay, but after a while, at first I felt really sorry for her, and then I'm like, oh wait, she's not all there. But I still feel sorry for her, and I do understand why she wants them dead, because they're horrible, horrible people.
Right. Because at the beginning, you sort of think Mary Cat is a normal person-ish.
I wasn't quite sure how old she was throughout some of
It-
it, because at some point I never got the sense that she was 18.
It's interesting because it's in the first line, because I had the
Yeah.
It
same,
is,
I had
but
exactly the same feeling.
but her thought process
She
is
doesn't
stunted.
act
She's
like
stuck
an
absolutely
18-year-old.
stunted.
in time. She's like in Amber as
Yeah.
the 12-year-old of
Yep.
that night.
Right.
Because her storytelling makes sense for a 12-year-old.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But certainly not for an 18-year-old young
Mhm.
lady.
Yeah, and the way she interacts with people and her sister, it's like, you don't think you're 18 years
Yeah.
old. You don't seem like you're 18 years old.
So much mental health and brain health to
Mhm.
unpack in that.
Oh,
like
yeah.
agoraphobia, trauma responses.
Right.
Um,
Like,
is
you
she
kind
a
of think
sociopath?
you kind of think she's
Mary
the
Cat?
responsible one because she has to take care of her sister, but this is from her perspective.
Well, I started to wonder a little bit because like Mary Cat is clearly like competing with Charles for
Her sister's
Constance's
affection.
attention. And so is Mary Cat just another like abuser in a way?
Right.
You know, was one of
Well,
the
it
wondering.
turns out, yeah.
Well, she's a murderer. But okay, so I did not get the subtext from the book,
Uh-huh.
but I was working on stuff here late last night, so I watched the movie. Did
I also
anybody?
watched
There was a movie?
Okay. Yeah,
Oh,
there's
okay.
a movie
It's
from
I gotta watch it.
2018.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah,
It has a different
Taysa-
ending.
Yeah, but the ending is different, but it still communicates all of the like
And then essentially
all of the horror of Charles in the
Right.
last moment.
the movie does a really great job. Like, a lot of the like narration in the all the lines are pretty much word for word from the book, but at the
Mhm.
very end, Charles comes to check on the sisters like he does in the book, but he actually makes his way into the house. So Mary Cat ends up smashing his head open with a snow globe and killing him
Wow,
brutally,
okay.
and then they're happy.
Splat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty satisfying because he's very
Okay.
evil.
It balances.
Yeah, he
it-
kind of he has it
Well,
coming. But
I was wondering if there wasn't going to be like a sharp turn of revelation where, because point of view is so important.
Uh-huh.
So we're so strictly in Mary Cat's point of view, like she's telling Charles like he's fixated on money and material goods.
Uh-huh.
But are we going to get a twist where he's really there to give a healthy?
You kind of think he might be actually there to help a little bit,
yeah.
but then you learn.
No, he's just
Well,
another
no,
user.
no, in the
Yeah.
book, I kind of got. At first it starts like he's
Right.
in the very very beginning. He starts like he's there to help him, and he
No,
wished
I
it.
always felt like he
but-
was a slime ball.
But
Yeah.
very, very quickly, his character, as he moves in and takes over, and
But I don't trust Mary Cat because like the revelation that she
Right.
poisoned everybody was not. Whoa!
Whoa.
You've been gruesomely describing to us at every turn how you would murder and
How
poison
you want to kill
everyone.
people, yeah.
Everyone except Constance.
And you can't figure out why Constance would do that. And you're like,
Yeah.
I don't know why. You never get any hint as to why Constance would murder
No.
her family.
no, but you get the sense that I figured she was covering for somebody. I just didn't
Well,
know
yeah.
what, because she is such a kind, self-sacrificing
didn't-
person.
I mean, the sugar bowl. Her immediately washing the sugar bowl was like, oh, that is a point of curiosity.
It's a little suspicious.
But I still didn't take that as covering for somebody. Like Constance has such little agency.
Uh-huh.
I figured there'd be a bigger story
Yeah.
of
Right.
somebody from the outside, the villainous townspeople,
'Cause she's-
a
'cause she's-
business dealing gone wrong.
Because she's always serving someone. She's either a servant to the uncle, or to Mary Cat, or to now Charles.
Yeah. There's some interesting nuance added in the film
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Where
from
can
there.
one see this film?
on Netflix.
Yes.
Okay.
Super
Um,
easy.
Yeah, it was, and it's like 90 minutes long.
Yeah,
It's
it was-
a good, easy movie to watch.
Tight and concise.
What was I gonna say? So there's some added like backstory, which is in the book, but it's not really fleshed out about
Yes.
why the townspeople really hate them,
Yes.
and it's to do with their father who was sort of like a miser,
Yeah.
and the townspeople felt like he wronged them, stole their money, or took advantage of them, and then held himself up in
Wealth
this,
hoarding.
yeah,
You know,
in
which,
this
how
house.
prescient.
Right.
You know?
And then there's also an added nuance to cousin Charles, and his relationship with Constance is far more romantic in the movie, which I think there's like a little
No, I
tiny touch
understood.
of, but
no,
I understood that Charles was angling to marry Constance.
Yeah.
Which is something that's unsettling about the movie, because Shirley Jackson lived from 1916 to 1965, I think. So the movie is set at the same time as the book was released.
like the 60s.
But I don't think the story was being told from that point of view. They were telling the story when upper crust New Englanders
Yeah.
were easily marrying their cousins.
Yes.
No problem.
Mhm.
So, like, Charles is going to marry her.
Yeah.
Now, it's Sebastian Stan.
Yep.
Got it right?
Not Richard Madden.
Yeah, nope.
Sebastian Stan.
And they're both equally hot, so.
She's like the most gorgeous woman I've ever seen.
Okay, this movie, I'm sorry, I know we're supposed to talk about the
I
book,
know.
but this
You
movie
should watch it, though.
I will be
So-
watching it while so tonight.
perfectly cast.
Yes.
Thaisa
The-
Farmiga,
Yep.
who is our girl from first season of American Horror Story,
Oh, okay.
Murder House Girl, and then of course reprises other
Oh,
things,
the Murder House
like
Girl.
the Witches story. I think the Witches, the season 4 maybe of American Horror Story, is the last time she's.
I looked her up. She seems to only be in scary things.
Yeah, so it's perfect.
Yeah. Alexandra
she's so perfect.
Daddario. I'm not entirely
She's
sure
the
how to say
gorgeous
it.
one,
She's
yeah.
the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in this
She was
movie.
in White Lotus, which I actually
Uh-huh.
hated.
Uh-huh.
But still, the acting in White Lotus was impeccable. She plays a very similar character of the now, though.
Mm.
She's married to a spoiled, very wealthy only child, and they're on their honeymoon. And
Uh-huh.
she has no agency, which is, their vignettes part of the story. But she is gorgeous.
Yeah.
She is delicate.
Yep.
She is perfect.
Yeah,
and
it was very well cast.
Uncle Julian as
Oh, Crispin Glover.
loved it so
It
much.
He was really good.
Awesome.
So
Okay, I'm
which is
excited.
not how I pictured Uncle
No.
Julian, but as soon
he
as
was
he
great.
was, it was like, well, duh, the age works because
Yeah.
he's
But in
probably
my
around
mind,
50.
Uncle Julian is like an
really old
man.
and decrepit. But if you think about the timing,
No, I know.
I don't
He's
think
the right age.
I don't think he was that old, but like an old man. I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
think of him as an old man, but I thought
You
of
kinda
him
think of him
who
that
was
way.
who's prematurely aged by illness.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It was very good.
So perfect. It really made the book come to life. But the
Yes.
nuance you have not touched on
Okay.
is in the movie, it's so illustrated. They don't use any different dialogue,
Mhm.
any different exposition. Um,
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And
Maricat
yeah.
was protecting her sister and herself
Yeah.
from her father. And that's what they were fighting about.
Mm.
So there is because they assign to Jim, the chief of the
Uh-huh.
firefighters.
Oh, yeah.
They say that he was in love with Constance, and that the father denied his proposal of
Yeah.
marriage, and then the way the scene plays out, where Constance says to everyone watching, "Oh, like you did with the others,"
Mhm.
it's so, to me,
Yeah.
very clear that there's a suggestion of abuse of whatever kind.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, there's the whole scene in the book and in the movie where she's gone to the moon, or her hiding place, her like happy place, and
Mhm.
she's imagining way back when, and her parents talking about how she's the favorite daughter and
Yeah.
we must never punish her, and
Yes.
you know that this is because she's on the moon, that's
Yeah.
her happy place, she
Mhm.
can make it whatever she wants, everything is perfect there. Where it was the opposite, and
Right.
Constance was the favorite daughter,
Yeah.
and she was being punished for whatever reason. And Constance, I think, even mentions at one point that she was an unruly child.
Yeah.
So
I think that's still, that whole imagining of the parents doting on
Mary Cat.
Mary Cat made me feel like it was like a wish,
Yeah.
like that she was still a petulant child.
Yeah.
Like, this was not the wish of a child who feels remorse for the
No.
deeds
no,
she
no.
did.
Oh no.
Or had any like redeeming motive.
Yeah,
Like
no.
the way the movie framed it, at least there's some kind of redeeming motive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not so
And then
much.
she completely takes care of Sebastian Stan.
Yep. So I have some questions here from a website called inkishkingdoms.com
Okay.
that I thought were pretty good. I don't know how I stumbled across them, but
Glad you did.
the first question is about patriarchy, and how it's portrayed in the book. Um, so I was reading some other review of this book that mentioned how the juxtaposition between men and women in this book, and the men in the book, with the exception of Uncle Julian, are like her father, her uncle. They're all very like square and to the point, and the women are more. I mean, one of them is pretty much a witch. Constance is much more maternal and domestic, and um, she's following into this sort of line that was set before her of all the other Blackwood women. And there's a lot of talk about the Blackwood women that came before them and stuff like that.
Jars and jars.
Yeah, jars of food, and I think the whole point about bringing up the patriarchy is that it was easy enough for Charles to come in and take
And
over
just
with
swoop in.
with
Yeah.
the intention of like, you need help, I am here now, I will help you, look, I've come to save you.
I'm the man.
Yeah. And I mean, to be fair,
Yeah.
they did need help, but
Yeah, but they didn't need him to take over.
yeah, I mean, they needed the kind of help that I felt like what's his name, or Mrs. Clark was trying to give
that's
them.
the right kind of
Yeah,
help. But
yeah.
that's woman to woman.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, she was. Well, that's interesting how she was actually, because she's like, "Oh, you don't have to mingle with the townspeople. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Just stay among your people."
Yeah, I couldn't remember because at the beginning it mentioned two families that were like not of the town, but they were like the upper crust.
Yes.
And was she one of them?
I never sorted that because Mary Cat kept mentioning the other house in town
Yeah.
that they should have righteously had,
Yeah.
Right.
or rightfully had. And that didn't get fleshed out actually.
No.
Well, they talked about it didn't belong to them through their mother's inheritance, but because of something,
Probably because
They
of
lo-
man.
because of him, because of her
Because of the patriarchy.
because of her father, it got lost in some legal thing.
Right.
And I thought it was very audacious that same family was like, just checking out our future property when you're gone.
Yeah. We already touched a little bit on Charles's intentions and how you can sort of tell from the beginning. You see right through him, what he's about, which it ends up being exactly what he's about, because
Yep.
when the house is burning down, he's not concerned about
They're
anybody
fine.
except for
Get the money.
the safe.
Get the
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
He's like, they had plenty of warning. They're fine.
Yeah, they're
Like,
fine. I'm not concerned about them.
You haven't laid eyes on residents of the house. Wouldn't that be like an important fire safety
no,
stuff?
and nobody else
no.
cares.
No, they
And
don't.
then he comes back and you're like, okay, like maybe in the movie he comes back alone without the
Yeah.
The mob.
the book is so
no,
much
without the
better.
like magazine
Yeah.
man.
Because it just shows him it shows him in clear light that
Yeah.
there's no doubt about what he was about.
Yeah.
And it's so pathetic.
It's so pathetic.
Yeah, like it's just so weak and sad, which I liked better as a better ending.
Yes.
Like really the author nailed how to wrap
Yeah.
Charles up.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because in the book it's like, the girls finally know exactly where his intentions lie because they hear his whole conversation.
Mhm.
There's no questioning. And Constance isn't like, oh, well, maybe, we should give him another chance. She sees, right through it. You hear exactly what his intentions are.
Which her the veil being lifted for Constance on that just was another way that Mary Cat I think was caring for her in her very
Yeah.
sick way.
Yeah. What were some clues throughout the novel about Mary Cat's behavior and personality that show her as deranged? Like, what was your first clue that you're like, something's not right with this
I
lady?
mean, I don't think
She's
it's
walking
exactly-
through the town. It's
walking over their corpses.
Yeah.
Didn't she like describe their faces melting away or
Yes,
something?
something like that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that doesn't sound too
Like,
good.
I mean, I have some vivid imaginings
I
when
don't
I'm
quite
unhappy or
understand
uncomfortable.
why
but-
she went in for a coffee. She knows how much they hate him. She knew
She
that.
said it was because
out of pride.
yeah,
was
out
one
of
the
pride.
things.
She needed to show her face because she didn't want to like shrink away, and she wanted to be able to say, you know, I deserve to be in this town and to walk around and buy groceries, I guess. I think. Um,
And you have the sense that is it Sally who runs the
oh,
coffee?
The coffee. I think Sally.
it's not Sally,
It's
but
not-
I can't remember her name.
But that she is an ally of sorts.
Yes.
Not for sure, but that she's an ally of sorts.
She's
Yeah,
like
she
80% ally.
Well,
Stella.
Stella. Yeah,
that's
I knew it started with an S. She's not 100% because she still has to live in the town.
yeah.
But she's
And-
at least nice.
Well,
to
because
her.
she
she's
lets
nice to
Jim
him.
go for a long time
Yeah.
when he's
Bef-
harassing.
Exactly. She's
America.
before she finally says, "Okay, enough. You." Instead of telling him to go, she tells Mary Cat, "You
to
should
leave.
go."
Yeah. Can you just stop antagonizing people by existing?
Yeah. This question I thought was interesting because I never considered. Do you think that Constance is an accomplice of the crime, or is she just too
Yes.
scared of Mary Cat to take any actions or to run away
No.
from her?
I think that she's totally an accomplice because before the police get there,
Mhm.
She
like that they
watches the-
equally care to protect each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Constance knew what was happening immediately. She gets up from the table and she washed the sugar bowl.
And she says she's always known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, by legal definition, yes, she is an accomplice. But I also, like, why would you be complacent that way? Like,
Yeah.
like I don't know. It's just such a deliberate act of cover up.
That's the other part of it is like, is she scared of Mary Cat, or does she like legitimately care for her as her like baby sister
Yeah.
wants to take care
Yeah.
of her?
I feel like she
Because she also. Go ahead.
she legitimately cares for her and is taking care of her as a big sister, and is an ally to her because they both suffered abuse.
But I don't know if they both did.
Yeah, I'm not. Well,
Maybe she did, but
it's hard to say because we don't know what the parents' argument was about.
Sure.
That's always going to be. It's the greatest mystery of my time, according to Uncle Julian.
Yeah.
Of my life, perhaps. Which Uncle Julian was a little bit of a throwaway to me until seeing Crispin Glover portray.
Yeah, he was great.
my papers. Why are my papers in the box? Hey, let's put my papers in a box.
Hey,
Wait a minute, why?
Where did this box come from?
Why are my papers in the box?
Yeah. I felt so bad for him though because he'd like go in this big like, you know, exposition and tell you everything that happened, and then at the end he's like, but it really did happen, right, Constance?
I know that is okay.
And you can also totally see where Charles is coming from. It's like, why are we letting him be so
Awful?
why are
Yeah.
we dwelling on this? Like, let's move along, you know? Like, that's one
Yeah.
point where I was sort of agreeing with Charles. It's like, yeah, why are we just condoning this?
Mhm.
That this isn't good.
I don't know that he was ever going to be in a healthy place where he could avoid thinking like that. I think
I mean, but I don't know if it needs to be encouraged.
I have two things.
Okay.
One is the other way that is substantive that Constance is allying or protecting Mary Cat and
Uh-huh.
being, you know, perhaps an accomplice is that she says she did it.
yeah, she went through the entire
She
inquest,
said she was completely responsible.
the entire inquest until she
Yeah. So I really think once she understood what Mary Cat had done, she was there for her 100%.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is that it's a grief tool to tell your story.
Sure.
And part of telling your story is that's how your brain learns that it's real.
Yeah.
So, like, the fact that Charles wanted him to stop, even though to everybody else it's uncomfortable, like, that is the healthiest thing that
That
Julian
he
could
could
do,
do.
is
Yeah. Talk about it.
to keep telling his story. As much, I mean, who knows how much diminished capacity he, like, truly had because
Right.
of the injury from being poisoned. Yeah.
So who all was poisoned? I know the mother, the father, but
Mother,
some
father,
point-
a little brother, and I think there
I
was
thought-
one more
I thought-
sister.
No.
I thought Constance was either married or engaged or something, that there was someone there for Constance that also died.
No.
No?
Julian's wife and then Mary Cat and
Julian's wife.
Constance's younger brother and their parents.
Thomas.
Okay. So 4 people.
And she tried to kill all of them except Constance.
Yeah.
Because she knew Constance didn't
Doesn't
take sugar.
Yeah.
And she was in her room, so she knew she would not have access to the sugar.
Yeah. And at the end of the novel, Mary Cat gets exactly what she wants the whole time. It's just to live alone and not be bothered
Yeah.
with her sister. And that's the end.
And
you
free
know?
food.
I feel sorry
Yeah.
for her sister.
Oh, yeah. You feel terrible for Constance throughout the book for a lot of
Yeah.
different reasons.
Yeah.
In the beginning, you feel bad because you're like, oh, this poor person
has
is so
agoraphobia,
agoraphobic and she
yeah.
can't leave the house. And then, oh, I feel bad for her because she's being manipulated by this man. And then you feel bad at the end because she's a prisoner of her sister and can't do anything, you know? But I think she's totally
At
off
the
her rocker
end?
at the end.
No, at the end, I think she has the most like agency.
I think she's totally gone at the end.
Broken.
I think
Completely
she's
broken.
just like, yep, this is my life now. She's not gonna try to do anything different. She's like, okay, I guess this, you know. I think she's totally crazy by the
How
end
long?
of it.
Okay, so this is like the Wild Toad ride, Mr. Toad's
Uh-huh.
Wild Ride. So at first, it's a little bit arsenic and old lace, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
It has the crazy uncle and
Literally.
everything, right?
Yeah.
Then it's I see dead people
Uh-huh.
because the uncle looking right at Charles and saying,
She's been dead this whole time.
I'm like,
At that point, I was like, wait a minute. wait.
rewind.
And then I was like, no, she's not actually
went
dead.
to the village and bought
People
things.
saw her. And you know how sometimes that happens? You're like, wait, she was
Yeah,
dead the whole
yeah.
time. I fell for it for 2 seconds.
Yep.
I did too, because I'm like, wait a minute. They're dead and they're ghosts.
Yeah.
Well,
And
then
it's a
I was-
haunted
yeah,
house
like the
because
other-
that's
yeah.
why the
Yeah,
kids
that
go.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, they even have the little kid going up to the door of the haunted house.
Yeah, and the nursery rhymes about
The
them. And
nursery
you're like,
rhymes.
maybe they are dead. Or not.
I was
would've been
gonna
exciting.
say it had like a tone of The Skeleton Key, which was a kind of obscure horror movie, but actually I watched a second movie last night,
Uh-huh.
which is on Hulu. In 2020, they came out with a biography movie of Shirley Jackson,
Oh.
starring Elizabeth Moss,
Ooh.
who is, I think, one of the greatest actresses of our time. And it's amazing.
What is it called?
Shirley.
Nice.
It's
Okay.
amazing. And that had a little bit of the Skeleton Key situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's Grey Gardens.
It's
I mean,
so
it's a little Grey Gardens, but then it's
Mhm.
real
It's
but
so
she keeps
Grey
it clean. She always keeps it clean, which Grey Gardens did
I mean,
not.
at the end, half the house is unusable,
Yeah.
but
But it's clean.
yeah. No, I love Grey Gardens, so I was like waiting for that sort of motif to come into play because
Yeah.
by the description of the novel before I had read it, I was like, this sounds a lot like a Grey Gardens kind of deal, but
Yeah, it's so good. I really enjoyed this novel.
Mhm.
yeah. It seems like the kind of book I would reread a
Yeah.
couple of times because
Yeah.
it's short and it was just
It
kinda
went
fun.
by pretty quickly. There's parts I think I would like to revisit.
Yeah.
Well, I completely missed that our girl Maricat caused the fire.
Yeah.
I think what I actually know from when she starts talking about the eye color that I was leaving work, so I think it might have like autoplayed a little bit while I was at work.
Yeah.
And I just missed that bit where she's in the room and then knocks the
the pipe over.
pipe into the trash can.
And by knocks, we mean she meant to do it.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, in the
There's,
movie, it's
like-
blatant. Yeah, I think she
Oh,
lights a match.
no, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure in
maybe.
the book it's blatant too. It's the oops.
But I didn't
Wow.
hear that, and so
Oh.
I thought maybe it was like, oh, see, Charles, you're so great and helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, he did leave his pipe smoldering.
And he was I
Yeah.
love the clues that she gives you about his character and how completely useless he is because he can't fix the back step.
Nope.
And they're like, yeah, that would be great. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'll be a handyman for you.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Wink,
mhm,
wink.
Yep. Or
Um,
here, just put your money in my wallet. I'll go.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like, even that guy, like, they wouldn't pay me. Well, it's because you didn't fix it.
Yeah,
We're
what a
not going to
monster.
pay someone. Amazing.
Back to the patriarchy.
Ba-
So much has been perpetrated against women because it's his story against her story.
Yep.
Right.
And who inevitably gets
Because look at the people, the townspeople that actually took action and went in. You didn't see women. You didn't hear about women going in and stealing stuff. It was the men of the town that came in and damaged.
I think they
Women
carried
were
on.
there. The women were there and cheering them on, and were outside. But I didn't hear about women going actually into the house. They were part of the crowd, but
Yeah, I don't
I only heard
remember.
about the men going
Well,
in
there's a really good line
under
in
the guise of
first
being
chapter.
under the guise of being firemen.
When she walked.
Well,
No,
they were firemen.
no,
Well,
because the chief takes his hat off. Because I
Yeah.
just had to re-listen
Oh,
to
that's
this
right.
He
part.
says, "We're firemen," and then he takes
Can't
his hat
let it
off,
burn.
and then he
Yeah.
throws a rock through their
Yep.
window.
because I'm
Monster.
not.
Okay,
I'm not a fireman
wait,
now.
are there more questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Carry on.
Okay.
Because I have something I want to like connect from her other writings.
Okay. Do you think that Mary Cat is a witch?
Yes.
What is the relation?
I think she's a bloodline witch, though.
Okay. What is the relation that you can find between being a witch and feminism in this novel?
I didn't see her as
Oh.
a witch. I just saw her as a mentally troubled person,
Well, at the end,
which is
the
not
children
not what
are
a witch
like,
is.
"Hey, don't go over there. Witches live over there." You know,
Well,
I
they
know, but
tell
that's
the kids
just
that. But she does. She's actively
She-
doing magic that she can believe, like she believes is gonna work.
I know in her brain she does these things, but I don't actually think that they are real magic. But that's me because I don't necessarily believe in that. But I do believe that oftentimes people in the town label women. Here's a patriarchy thing. They label women who are difficult or who do not follow the social norms as witches.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Mary
see,
Cat
like,
is actively.
yeah, she's like, I
Yeah,
have my
she's trying to
magic
do
words.
hexes, yeah.
I.
But I took that as like
Oh.
what a child does sometimes.
What is the opposite? I don't. Was this in the book? What is the opposite of a
Oh,
spell that works or something?
Yeah.
And she comes up with like it's a curse.
yeah. The opposite of a spell is a curse or something like
Yeah.
that.
I don't remember that being in the book, but it was so well done in the movie.
I sort of conflate the two at some
Yeah,
points
they're-
because I finished the book and watched the movie that same day.
Also, it's really wonderful when you get the treat of a movie that holds its source material so
They don't
in
change.
such honor, you know?
Right.
Like
right.
Well,
all
I'm
they
excited
did
to
was
watch it.
streamline the storytelling.
If you have doubts about the previous question about her being a witch, what role?
This one's for you, Karin.
What role does Jonas play in this novel?
Oh,
Which one's Jonas?
he's the cat.
cat.
It's her familiar.
He's her familiar.
Well, yeah, there is
She
that.
does speak to him,
Yeah.
and through him,
Can we all talk to our cats?
sure, but she sees Jonas as like a real person.
She listens to
Because
him.
she's
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh,
Or-
Karin.
or-
Karen. Should we assign that word to this young lady? She
Okay,
definitely has
she's not
mental
crazy.
health.
She had mental issues from
Mental
stemming
health
from a,
issues to
she
to
created.
handle.
I feel okay. How I see it is, she because of the trauma of what happened to her as a child, she has created this world of escape to,
Mhm.
of which her cat is an integral part. I feel like having been someone who had a hideaway place to go to when things were scary, I think of her clubhouse retreat, her little hideaway place as her safe place when to escape from danger.
Yeah.
So I didn't see that as witchcraft. I saw that as
I mean, it could be
a
both.
mental play. It could be both. It
And so
totally could
you
be
see
both.
that comfort building as also relying on the cat, as opposed to you could see the cat and their relationship as like a familiar.
I could
Like, you
see.
could see-
I could see it both ways
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But I don't think her like happy place of the moon and her safe place of the physical mess that she had, that those are like comfort, child seeking comfort,
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
because she is definitely like stagnant at 12 years
Oh,
old. But the other things, like, you could also turn those into conventional like syndromes, like they're a
Uh-huh.
little bit of a compulsive display of behavior, so sure. Or they're magic, bearing silver coins. Witches have like, this is some symbolism that that might have been very deliberately
Mhm.
used by Shirley Jackson, of like,
And how would a 12-year-old know these? I guess because
she's an avid reader.
An avid reader.
She has a
That's
magic
true.
book. Like,
That's
she
true.
has books of
That's true.
spells that she has taken
There-
from the library.
The other thing about it is that witchcraft doesn't necessarily mean magic.
Yeah.
So she could be practicing
That's
witchcraft
absolutely right.
even if her magic isn't technically some
Magic.
metaphorical,
Yeah.
magic thing.
Yeah.
She's doing these protections and these mantras and these, all of these different things that she finds comfort in, and is helping her, regardless of whether or not it's actually like a metaphysical magic kind of thing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's
It's
a
still
really good point.
witchcraft,
Okay.
technically. I mean, it could be. That's why I'm thinking it could be both things.
Yeah, I mean it's so artfully done. Its point of view is so important in this like
It really is.
interpretation.
Well, because I think her way of practicing witchcraft is not in the same view that the villagers think of her as a little witch.
She's
No,
not
not at
eating
all.
No.
children.
You're right. Like both
The-
the positive side of how a witch, crafts her world,
Mhm.
and the angry, I'm calling you this as
The
a
angry villagers.
Yeah.
Literally, they were the
Literally.
trope of the angry villagers.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
did anybody pause and like read or listen to The Lottery after?
Mm-mm.
Which I read in high school, and there's a movie. I think it's a 1996 movie, but I didn't look at it very carefully because I also came across a movie short. So The Lottery is something that if you haven't experienced, you should just read. But it is basically about like mob mentality
Mhm.
and how a mob just, without any clear reason to an outside observer, can do the most heinous, horrifying things.
Yeah.
Like crash down someone's home.
Yeah.
And Shirley Jackson just illustrates that so beautifully in this book. But The Lottery is what she's like most famous for. And I'm a little jealous that you guys are, if you go looking for it, haven't read it before, because it's wonderful to come into it not knowing exactly what it is,
Yeah, I
which
don't
is
know
why
anything
I'm
about
right
it.
now talking about it as vaguely as I can.
Okay.
Cool.
Because while I was listening to it today, I found like a 15-minute reading of it on YouTube. 17 minutes and 18 seconds actually, but I'm like, oh, I know where this is going.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, I'll have to listen to it.
But Shirley Jackson she nails, like, especially in the way she talks about the villagers that Mary Cat can like see and fixate on their faces,
Yeah.
like the strongest, worst, distinctive villains,
Mhm.
and then how the rest of them just have these gray,
They're like
shapeless
a blur.
faces.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And how they're just like a mush of negativity to her.
Yeah.
I think of like the people at the grocery store are just like these vague, like you said, mushes. They're like, I don't know. Whereas the worst bullies,
Oh, they blaze clear and bright.
Yeah. So if Mary Cat's symbol of female empowerment is her magic or her witchcraft or whatever you want to call it, what is Constance's symbol of female empowerment?
Oh, domesticity and nurture.
Mhm.
Food is precious to her.
Food.
Yeah.
and food is being able to provide food is kind of like the secret power of the family.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that it's something held sacred by the women of the family, passed down from generation to generation. That they even that's so special that they have jars from female ancestors that they've never opened and they would never open because it's like precious treasure.
I don't think this one was in the book, but I think this is how the movie illustrated that. She wants Mary Cat to go and buy rhubarb, and Mary Cat has a tantrum because she's like, I don't like rhubarb. And Constance says, but it looks so pretty on the shelf.
Yeah, no,
So, like,
it's in the book.
Okay,
It's in bold.
Yeah.
I remember it in the book. That is the prettiest
It didn't
on the
stick
shelves
out
because
to
it's the
me.
prettiest color
Yeah.
on the shelves. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it's just Constance talking about more food.
Yeah. So how does Mary Cat and Constance, or how do Mary Cat and Constance oppose the patriarchy? What do they value the most?
Oh, they value each other the most.
Yeah, I think
Privacy.
sisterhood is like
Yeah.
the biggest like theme of the book.
For better or worse.
Well, for worse.
Yeah.
Well,
Because even
is it for worse? Because depending on because it's never told. It's just insinuating whatever wrong happened to Mary Cat that she would try to poison her whole family except her sister. that she gets what she wants.
Yeah.
She gets a world alone with Constance.
With Constance.
Where she has to. We haven't talked about how she is constantly telling herself, "I'll be nicer to Uncle Julian."
Yeah.
That's like
I
her
need to be nicer
only
to Uncle Julian.
only guilt admonition.
Yeah. I need to try and be nicer.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be nicer after Charles. But, I mean, I don't ever see her being mean to him.
It's Uncle Julian.
Yeah.
Well, she did poison him with arsenic that one time.
Yeah,
Maybe
6
she
years
learned a little bit
ago.
like,
6 years ago.
maybe I
That's in
regret that.
the
I'll be
past-
nicer.
The past is the past.
Do you think Julian knows? Or do you think he
Oh.
ever suspected? Because he says he's trying to figure it out. It's like the great mystery, right? It's like, how did it happen? Because he says Constance is acquitted, but he also knows that Constance knows how to poison people.
Yeah, but he speaks to her like, why would she do it in such a pedantic way?
Right.
Like, she has so much.
But he loves to
great
tell
knowledge.
people, like, she could do it, but she got acquitted for murder, so she didn't. We can't
Maybe
blame
that's
her.
her. Maybe that is his. Maybe some part of his brain does know, because maybe he's antagonizing
Because
Mary Cat a little bit by being mean to Constance.
I got the sense that there's this game that they like to play when certain looky-loos, nosy people
Yeah.
come in. They have, like, when they left, that's why they had the good laugh, like, ha, we got them again.
Yeah, we scared
Scared
those
them
people.
off. But I get the sense that there are some sympathetic souls in the village that are not like the mob.
Yeah.
And I feel like that they're
Where do you get the sense of that?
there's a
Oh,
few.
there's the people who do. There's like 4 people who care about the
Four
family.
people that care about the
All right,
family.
fair
That
enough.
visit and
They visit and to the point that is like my husband. That woman would not let her husband stop. She made him go over and over again to check on them. Why she couldn't feel comfortable to do it herself, I don't know. But I feel like with that intense isolation, they don't get a sense. They're robbed of community. Even if it's a small community, they're robbed of any kind of connection and community support.
Well, so that's something an abuser does, is isolate you.
yeah.
Mhm.
Which is where I'm like, oh, Mary
And
Cat
Mary Cat's
is
a
just another abuser.
Yeah.
But I mean, she wants the best for her sister, and the only way she knows how to give
But
that to her is to
It's not uncommon for
isolate
people
her.
of abuse to
think they're doing the best.
she doesn't
That's
want
true. Yeah.
the
to
best for her-
also abuse.
She doesn't want the best for her sister's sake, I don't think.
She
I
wants
think she's
everything's
afraid
about
of
herself.
her sister leaving. And
Yeah.
that was part of the point
Yeah.
of when
Yeah.
she was supposed to be engaged to this guy from town, is that I think that part of the reason why she did what she did is because she was afraid somebody was going to take Constance from her. And she didn't want that to happen. So she would do whatever she could to keep that from happening. And at the end of the novel, when it's just the two of them together, you're right in that she is just another one of Constance's abusers. If it wasn't her parents, it could have been anybody, because Constance didn't seem like she had a whole lot of, self, whatever the word is I'm trying to think of. But I think that by the end, Mary Cat got exactly what she wanted, but not for her sister's benefit, for her own.
Yeah.
How is power transferred in the novel, and what is the item that depicts the dynamic of power between Mary Cat and Charles? So Charles comes in and tries to take the power from this.
It's the watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her
Her
father's
watch and signet ring.
Yeah. Charles comes in and tries to save the day and fix everything, not because he's a nice person, but because he wants to benefit from it.
Yeah.
And
he's just oozing into the role of a family patriarch.
Yeah. And Mary Cat sees right through it, even if Constance can't or won't, doesn't want to. Because I think Constance, at some point when Charles is there and influencing her, she legitimately believes, like, oh, it's all my fault. She says that so often. It's like, it's all my fault that it's like this. It's my fault it is the way that it is. When I don't think it actually is.
No. Every time she said that, it just resonated so much. It's the same kind of thing that an abused woman who stays with her abuser says. Well, you don't understand. It's the same kind of, it's my fault he gets so angry. It's my fault that it's this way.
Look at what you made me do.
I mean, they take it. It's a way of stopping a tense conversation by just saying it's my fault.
Yeah.
to stop the conversation, just to just take the
To
blame,
be done with it.
to be done. Yeah. So that's how I took it, is she was taking that because so much has happened that she took the burden of. It's become her second nature for her. It's just her habit, her way to her default to take the burden.
Yeah, it's a role that she falls into relatively easily because I think that's just her way of coping with it. Um, that is the end of my list of questions for this book. So, is there any other points that we didn't touch on that you want to delve into a little bit more, or any other last thoughts about it? I mean, I enjoyed it.
Do you think, I'm just because I'm listening to you guys talk about Mary Cat, and
Uh-huh.
like by the end of the book, I felt like kind of softened towards Mary Cat. And it sounds like you guys view her even more
Worse.
villainous.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, I feel for her as a child, a literal child. I mean, not really because she's 18, but is
But
she?
she's, yeah,
I
But
feel
she's
to her as
diminished
a
capacity.
right as being able to deal with whatever she's going through at 12 years old, basically. You know that she has to cope with all this, and she's also like the at the beginning of the novel, she's portrayed as like the responsible one. She has to go to town. She has to take care of her sister. So at the beginning, I'm soft towards her, and I'm like, oh, I feel bad. Her sister needs her help. She's young. She has to care for her. And but by the end, I'm like, I think she knows exactly what she's doing and why she did it, and has no remorse for doing so. I don't
Yeah.
think she
No.
has any remorse at
Oh,
all.
No.
I mean, the closest we get to seeing her have remorse is, I definitely by the end of the book, and they end up living that way, that it's just Mary Cat being like, see,
Yeah.
this is how it was going to end up.
I don't know if I see her as a villain, but I definitely don't feel bad for her. I feel bad for Constance.
Yeah.
I like that it all worked out and I get dinner served every
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, but how long will that really last before
sustainability of shemainability.
yeah.
whatever.
I mean, the townspeople feel
They
bad. They bring them
really
chickens.
messed it up their house.
Yeah.
Like,
They have
Yeah.
like 3 rooms
I-
to live in.
Yeah, I kind of hope the guilt stays with them for quite a
so,
while.
and because it's sort of pointed to that like when the little boys come and howl at their house, that granted it's only been 5 months, because that the timeline is shown to us,
Mhm.
but that it's going to become like offerings to the
She says at the end, "Do you think we could eat a kid?"
yeah, I love
And
that.
Constance is like, "I don't know if I could cook one, you know." But I think that they're like sort of falling into their roles of like, well, maybe we are 2 witches that live at the end of the lane at the scary house. Like, I guess that's who we are now. I remember as a kid, there was a house across the street that was like big, and it was scary, and it was like decrepit looking, and it had a big hole in the side of it. It was just run down.
Mhm.
But like a witch lived there. You know, I'm sure a witch lived there.
course
I
a
don't
witch
know if
lived there.
anybody actually lived there,
No.
but that was the scary witch's house. So that's sort of how I picture it. It's like, oh, that's the scary witch's
Well,
house.
it's when in my head I'm like, when are the authorities really going to come in
Yeah.
and like condemn this house,
If
the
they
castle,
ever are. Yeah.
and take these women out of this place because it's condemned?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, half
Yeah.
of it's gone.
Half the roof is gone.
Yeah.
And I figure, okay, we're just going to be stopping this place while the weather's still good. But when the weather changes,
It's New England,
it's
Yeah,
New
I'm
England.
glad we don't know what happens.
right?
You know,
Yeah. It's getting colder though, because if it's 5 months on and this story started in
in spring.
yeah,
Yeah, it's moving toward
That's
colder
fun.
weather.
That's fun. Okay, you guys have got to watch Shirley. It
Okay.
was amazing, and she's right. She's writing a book while the story of this movie is unfolding, and I gotta read the next book. Like, this was a very good.
I'm
gateway
definitely
drug.
interested in reading more.
Yeah.
Shirley
So
Jackson.
I'm gonna read "Hangs a Man"
Uh-huh.
next.
I saw that as recommended for like, you finish this, you should read this
Yeah,
next.
yeah. So that's gonna be my next Shirley Jackson. I so enjoyed Haunting of Hill House. I don't know if I'll read that one, but her books are so good.
I mean, it's nice to be introduced to a author that you didn't know a lot about, and to enjoy it enough to be like, oh, I want to read more
Yeah,
of this, you know. And for something that's like a classic that has, I mean, she wrote this in the 60s, or it was released in the 60s. It's like, that was a long time before I found out that, like, oh, this is a, you know, it's fun to go back and find a new thing that you're interested in. So
Yep. It's always been there.
Yep. Well, anything else you guys have read recently that you've enjoyed? Any other recommendations? I
Let me
didn't
go
read
get my
anything
phone.
else.
I
I never read anything else. I always opt out of this section.
This is very short, Katie.
I know I could have, but I didn't.
I spent a lot of time with one series,
Mhm.
which I didn't know was a series. I mentioned it last time, I think. Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman is a 4-book arc.
Okay.
I decided to read it in the order she wrote it.
Oh, I remember
So
you
the
mentioning
first
this.
book is Practical Magic, released in 1995. The next book is The Rules of Magic. So Practical Magic tells the story of Sally and Gillian Owens, and it was a movie starring Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman. And they're orphaned young, and they're raised by their 2 witchy aunts in it's not they're not in Salem, but they're just outside of Salem.
Mhm.
And it's just this beautiful, heartrending story of like how you grow up to be this person you think you need to be, and all these life tragedies happen along the way, and intense love, unconditional love, no matter what heartache and horror your beloved family member brings you, standing by them. And oh, it's so good. And then the next one is a story of the ants when they're young, set in the 1950s and 60s, to right up all the way until it meets up with the first book, and, and the girls are orphaned. The next book is a prequel to like the primogenitor Owens woman who came from Essex, the first Essex County in England. So that's set in the 1680s and 90s. And then the 4th book comes all the way back around to the 2 youngest Owen sisters who from the first book, and they're in their 20s, starting out in their love lives. And the thing that the books all revolve around is that Maria Owens, the first Owens woman in the U.S., cursed the family in love. And then it just all 4 of those books circle around the curse of the Owens family. It's so much magic, so much like witch folklore, and so much like family and complexity of families and complexity of love.
Mhm.
I I was overwhelmed by it. So good.
Nice.
So good. And that's it. I mean, I think it was like 50 hours of audiobook. So
That's a lot.
That's
Oh, wow.
all.
That's all.
That's all.
I listened to 5 hours of audiobook this month.
Oh, and then I did this.
Yeah.
Which I was grateful for being short, because I didn't want to interrupt my like spell of the Owens family.
Did I talk about the Sundown Motel last time?
It doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the Sundown Motel by Simone St. James, and it's about this girl who takes this. She's got this super stressful time in college, and she just takes a break, and goes off to find out the mystery of whatever happened to her aunt, who she never knew, but her mother had talked about briefly, but then something happened. They never talked about her ever again. She just sort of mysteriously disappeared, and she ends up taking this job at the same place where her aunt was. And there's mystery, and there's supernatural, and there's ghosts, because the Sundown Motel is haunted.
Of course.
But you find out why, and what the ghost is trying to tell anyone who will listen, by making all the lights and the signs go off and everything, and doors slamming and opening on it, and chill. And so many people have died at this place, and they're all haunting, including a little boy who died in the pool. And he keeps going, "Can we play?"
Creepy.
Yeah, there's a perfect amount of creepy. I also read The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, which is really, really good, about this group of final girls.
Oh, I think you talked about that.
I was going to, yeah, and
Mhm.
I went ahead and read it, and I just finished it last week, and it was really, really good. It has these twists about who, the main person. You realize it wasn't really a final girl, because final girls fight back, and this one didn't really fight back. So, but then her time to be a final girl comes in. Anyway,
Final Destination. It's always coming for you.
she becomes the final girl. Anyway,
Spoilers.
and there's a lot of it brings up about the type of people that women that follow the psycho murderers in prison and
Oh gosh,
want to
those are
do their will.
terrifying.
Yeah. And then I just today just finished her last breath. So her last breath is this girl is running in the park, and they find her body. She's like young, and supposedly she had an previously unknown heart condition, right? But then she some the at the right after the funeral, her sister, who's kind of been estranged from her and her father because of stuff that happened in their youth, but she is still involved with her married her sisters and her sister's married family. Anyway, she gets a text message from her sister who a week later after her death. Not a text, but like an email with attachments and everything. And so she tries to find out and realize, and her sister says, "If you get this, I'm already dead, and I didn't. It wasn't an accident,
It
and
wasn't your
Theo
phone
killed
who
me."
dis.
And Theo killed me because he killed his first wife, and nobody knew
Oh
he had a first wife.
no.
But anyway, you go along and you find out
Dun dun dun.
he has no memory of whatever happened. He only was told that he killed
Well, don't
his
give too
first
much away.
wife, but maybe he did, maybe he didn't, and you don't know. But I do, but I won't tell.
Okay.
Anyway, it's really good, called Her Last Breath, and it's a good audio too. So
Cool.
I didn't even total up the hours. I have started Cloud Cuckoo Land, but I took a break of that so I could finish work on these other books.
Well,
So
those all
anyway,
sound good. The last breath sounds really interesting.
that's a really good one. That was one of those that was like free. It'd be first month reads where you get it free, and then I went ahead and downloaded the audio, paid for the audiobook, or
Mhm.
used my credit for the audiobook, and that was really, I definitely recommend that one.
Cool. Anne gets to pick our next book. So, what are we gonna read?
We are going to read The Maidens by Alex Michaelides.
Okay.
He previously, his first book was the Silent Patient.
Oh,
Did you either of you read that?
yes.
I loved it.
I don't know
It
what
was
that is.
amazing.
What's his name?
Alex. It's Michaelides, so Michaelides. Um, and actually, I picked this just on the strength of his previous book,
Uh huh.
and other people who read this who said it was amazing, who also liked his first book. Edward Fosca is a murderer. Of this, Mariana is certain, but Fosca is untouchable, a handsome and charismatic Greek tragedy professor at Cambridge University. Fosca is adored by staff and students alike, particularly by the members of a secret society of female students known as the Maidens. Mariana Andros is a brilliant but troubled group therapist who becomes fixated on the Maidens when one member, a friend of Mariana's niece, Zoe, is found murdered in Cambridge. Mariana, who was once herself a student at the university, quickly suspects that behind the idyllic beauty of the spires and turrets and beneath the ancient traditions lies something sinister, and she becomes convinced that despite her alibi, Edward Fosca is guilty of the murder. But why would the professor target one of his students? And why does he keep returning to the rites of Persephone, the maiden, and her journey to the underworld? When another body is found, Mariana's obsession with proving Fosca's guilt spirals out of control, threatening to destroy her credibility as well as her closest relationships. But Mariana is determined to stop this killer, even if it costs her everything, including her own life. Um,
That sounds exciting.
it's a medium length book. It's like 9 hours and something on
Nice.
Audible. 9 hours and 19 minutes. Um, the Silent Patient was an amazing book, so I
Mhm.
have very high hopes for this one.
Okay.
It's coming across reviewed pretty well. Um, 4 out of 5 stars, basically the average.
Okay.
So
Is it
enjoy.
a new book or?
It's new. It came out a couple months ago.
Okay.
I want to say released in September. Oh no, released in June.
Okay.
So not brand spanking new, but pretty new.
Cool.
New for 2021.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will get to reading that then, and we will see y'all in the next episode where we will talk about it. So, I hope you have a great month or whatever, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Knit, 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 knit.
Yep.
Crochet, crochet. Sew, sew, sew.
And read, I guess.
Oh, yeah, that too.